Taiwan should pursue, bilateral FTA with Australia, Brunei, Japan, Malaysia, New Zealand already did, Singapore, and Vietnam. All right, and Michael also, advocate that, there are some political dividends, which I don't have time. Now, let's get to, what if both doors were shut? Well, don't worry, okay? If both doors are shut, then Taiwan should follow the Mexican model, which is signed with a trading partner with big country, already ECFA there, and then try to have some bilateral trade with small country. The second model is an EFTA, European FTA, European Free Trade Association model. Essentially, those are small European states. They rule out from the European Union, but they organize as an European Free Trade Association. The third model is the Singapore model. Singapore tried to sign the FTA as many as possible. And we advocate that Taiwan probably should follow the Mexican and the Singapore model. We also point out the Pacific Alliance, which could be a third way that Taiwan should do. All right? Because of the time constraint, I don't have time to go over the detail of the various model simulation of the impact, which if you are interested. Now, go to Larry's reminder. Larry wants me to point us to point out 3 points. All right. This section, the subtitle could be "Is Taiwan ready or not?" All right. Agriculture, very important, but it's very hard to overcome. All right. Number 2, and we talk about the tariff schedule. I don't have time to get to that. Service sector. I cite the non-tariff trade barrier for Taiwan's services sector. It's so high, 10% in the construction, 28% in the trade, and so on and so forth. If the TPP accomplishes as they schedule, no compromise, Taiwan will do a lot of the liberalization, on the services sector before Taiwan is eligible. And I don't want to exaggerate because Dr. Hu already said that. Nevertheless, services sector is much more complicated than the trade sector, merchandise trade, because involved with the what? Involved with the social political system. All right. I don't have time to get into that controversy. All right, but one survey from National Taiwan University says that the Taiwanese people favor American investors much more than from China. All right, and the argument is that admitting a chain store of a fast food chain such as a McDonald's restaurant causes big problem in Taiwan. Then to authorize a license for a single Peking duck house from China. The reason is very simple. The U.S. has no interest in claiming the sovereignty over the island of Taiwan, but Beijing does. Number 2, I shall add. I don't know how many, 1,500 or 1,800 or 2,500 missiles installed by China aiming at the Taiwan. All right, my time is finished, but I don't have time to that. Okay, get to the 3 point. Okay, we think that the restructure is very important, and then this is a smiling curve for the standing sheet. We think that Taiwan should try to button this value added. This morning they point out that the iPhone from Foxconn, right? The simple conclusion is that Taiwan should become a Toshiba to Apple, rather than the Foxconn to Apple. Why? Because the key ingredient of the iPhone in Apple was provided by Toshiba. All right, and the brand name, I don't have time to talk about that because that involves cultural barriers. And then, talking about the industrial restructure, all right, I did mention about that, the 3D printing technique. That is something that Taiwan may consider, all right. And the last point, is that there are some niche product Taiwan in some niche market which has not been fully exploited yet. That does not require any trade pact. If you are interested, you're welcome to get that and give me comment. I'm sorry I ran out of time, but I think that I should conclude that along with South Korea, Taiwan used to be a superior exporter, but now Taiwan far behind. I hope that with the opportunity of the competitive trade liberalization, that Taiwan can catch the opportunity to put back into the right track. Thank you very much for your listening.
Peter, I'm really sorry that I wish I could give you 40 minutes, but Larry wouldn't allow me to do that.
Well, never anybody else.
Now we turn to our discussant. Jeff, you have 15 minutes.
30 minutes?
He's a good negotiator.
Thank you very much. Again, Larry, thank you for inviting me to come here. Very rich discussions, and hopefully I can just add a couple of nuggets to what's already been said throughout the sessions of the conference. The three papers are very rich. There are a lot of detail. They start off from different positions, but they actually are moving in the same direction, and so they're very complementary. And what I'd like to do is just draw a few threads from them and from the discussions that we've had today. By way of introduction, I think it's worth reminding ourselves that Taiwan is in a dynamic and competitive neighborhood. And all of Taiwan's neighbors are engaged in a variety of economic integration projects, almost all of which exclude Taiwan. So that's the situation. If you were looking at it objectively, you'd say, well, Taiwan's pretty screwed. What can it do? Taiwanese exporters face increased competition in all their major export markets, including the U.S., the EU, China, due to bilateral and regional deals recently concluded or those under construction. We haven't talked about the Korea-China negotiations very much. Those are likely or could possibly conclude in the next 2 years. They've already begun. They've been underway for almost a year and a half. There's some potholes in that road, but that's going to have some profound implications for Taiwan's trade. So that's all the situation. So it's natural so there's a natural desire to get into the game and avoid new discrimination. And so the question is TPP the answer? And there's been a lot of back and forth on that. I would like to make my comments under three headings. First, is Taiwan ready? Dr. Chow just talked about that, but I will summarize it a little more broadly. Second question, are TPP members willing to accept Taiwan, and if so, when? And third, what are the key options for Taiwan going forward with regard to economic integration in the region? So very briefly on all three. Is Taiwan ready? Well, it's clear from everything that's been said today, the answer is no. There is a lot to do on services. There seems to be a lack of appreciation that doing services reform and other regulatory reform is essential to get productivity increases in agriculture and in manufacturers, and therefore to reduce the resistance to reform in those sectors. There is bureaucratic resistance across the board to change. That was spelled out very clearly in Dr. Lee's paper. There are a whole laundry list of U.S. complaints, some which are fundamental and some which are picayune. No offense, Don, but it's a laundry list. But I must say that I was very pleased to hear that Dr. Lee's studies and analysis of the chorus is looking into what really needs to be done and is setting out challenges and tasks to improve Taiwan's readiness. This is the right way to make progress, and I hope he and his colleagues are being listened to and are at least helping to set the agenda. So for the answer to the first question, no, but there is the prospect of making progress so that the gap is not as large going forward. Are TPP members willing to accept Taiwan? Well, it's not really an issue anymore for the first stage of the negotiations. And we've had some discussions of this today. The window is essentially closed for the initial deal. That deal's likely to close the first, could well close in the first half of next year. When it enters into force is a good question. Deborah discussed that well in the last session. Given the ratification uncertainties, I'd say the deal will enter into force 6 months after the Congress ratifies it. Because when that happens, there'll be a lot of pressure to move forward. And I think Deborah gave a good, cautiously optimistic estimate that we're talking about 2016, 2017 for entry into force. Now, the question is, when can new members or a second tranche come in? And the process of acceding to the TPP will be set out in very vague and general accession clause provisions in the TPP. And it'll say, if a country wants to join, they can ask us to join, we'll talk to them, and we'll let them in. What that doesn't say is that those countries will be asked to renegotiate, at least any significant economy will be asked to renegotiate the terms of entry. It's not just accepting the terms of the agreement, because the market access conditions and some of the rules will be looked at in the context of the particular economic relations between the candidate country and the existing members. So it'll be a new negotiation. And there will be additional demands made of any country that comes in. And that applies to Korea as well, and that's one of the costs that Korea will bear by its procrastination in not joining the TPP before the initial deal is cut. And of course, if China asks to join the TPP in the future, the demands will be TPP plus multiple times, much more than Taiwan. You can be sure of that. But that's part of the problem, because any new member that comes into the TPP after the deal is sought will have to negotiate that deal and have that deal accepted by the Congress. And the Congress will then come forward and take Don's list and add to it. And there will have to be a vote on adding Taiwan to the TPP, separate. That's why the United States has never used an accession clause in any of its FTAs. So it's in there, but it's essentially a new negotiation. Now, the second tranche is interesting, though, because when I say the Congress will vote on a new member, well, Taiwan, if it seeks membership in the second tranche, would actually probably have a lot of company. Korea may be in there. Indonesia may be in there. Indonesia is very concerned about investment diversion, which is the real main concern of many of the countries in the region about TPP. They're concerned about investment diversion if Vietnam is in the deal, because investments will go into Vietnam. Thailand, Philippines. So there's already a number of countries that are lining up in prospects of joining a second tranche of participants. That's going to be an interesting situation. Perhaps we can talk about it more in the discussion. Now, I want to get to the third point, because I was given only 10 minutes. Anyway, I actually enjoy the discussion more, so I'm going to try to leave more time for that. What are the options going forward for Taiwan? Well, first, and I know I missed the discussions yesterday, but I would be remiss in not re-emphasizing that one option for Taiwan going forward is working to ensure that the multilateral system gets back on track. Because Taiwan can